When I first played as this race, whose name literally translates to savage brute, the weapon I chose was the greatsword. Right, because it's cool. As a man, there is a certain romance in wielding a two-handed weapon, and reaping lives by spinning like a dervish while holding your sword in the middle of an enemy camp. The problem was that he died too easily. Feeling fascinated by the barbarian character, I started researching. How could I properly raise a barbarian to keep it alive? But even after many attempts, the barbarian still died too easily. No matter how much I tried to increase his survivability, he would always go berserk in a fight. There was no stability, because each battle was like walking a tightrope. Then, at some point, I began to doubt myself. Should I just use him as a tank? Barbarians have the highest vitality among the selectable races, and their average strength is also high, so they can even wear adamantium equipment. Although not as good as a dwarf with its cheaty special ability, a barbarian has the basic skills of a tank. Well, to tell the truth, I didn't really want to play as a barbarian tank, but all the research I'd done by then would go to waste. Otherwise, so I decided to give it a try. And after a few trials and errors, I was able to make a nurturing strategy. Isn't this a scam? Without any regrets, I threw away the dwarf that was my original tank. So what if your fights weren't as exciting? I'd always valued efficiency, and I was a human being who could throw away his preferred playstyle if it helped him win. Just like the decision I was making now. Step. When I returned to my seat after choosing my weapon, I could feel the other barbarians staring at me. What? Your first time seeing a Barbegus, barbarian shielder? 1. As a proud barbarian, I came back to my seat with a dignified, unflinching look. There was no need to act this time. Next. I had no regrets about my decision. There were 3 reasons. First, among the starting weapons, the shield is the most expensive when resold. 2. There is a strong possibility that even if I hold a bladed weapon right now, I will not be able to use it properly. Third, the Barbegus is my ultimate pursuit. Today I made the most rational decision I could make. With this you have become a warrior. After choosing my weapon and returning to my seat, there was some free time for now. How to survive. The coming-of-age ceremony was over, and now I was walking in the woods. The chieftain in the front and the young barbarians in the back. Everyone seemed to be having fun as if they were going on a picnic. But I couldn't join in that simple-minded laughter, because I knew their final destination. Stop. The place we arrived after passing through the thick forest was about 30 m in front of a fairly sized wall. Open the gates. The gates opened with the crude rattling sounds of a mechanism, slow enough to make you yawn. But the young barbarians watched in wonder as if they had forgotten to breathe. In that strange silence, a gray city finally appeared beyond the gates. Rafdonia. Perhaps just during this moment, my eyes were not much different than them. Roads in good condition, and stone structures. And visible through them, a spire towering high in the sky. I'd never dreamed that the day would come when I would actually see the place illustrated on the game loading window. Shit. Warriors. When the door opened, the chief turned around and shouted. Before he let us go, I wondered if he wanted to say something nice. Leave? Your destiny awaits. The barbarians did not need boring speeches. Woo. The barbarians, who had just reached adulthood, ran into the city shouting. I didn't like it. But I too screamed and followed after them. There may be people who are sleeping soundly in the dimly lit buildings, but who cares about them? I am a barbarian. Kyung? The gates closed behind us with a groan. Of course, none of these savages cared about that. The overexcited primitives ran for a long time before finally calming down and slowing their pace, and only then was I able to calmly continue my thoughts. Right now, I have conflicting emotions. Of course, fear of the upcoming situation, but also some kind of anticipation since I've become a part of the world in the game I enjoyed the most. It's a little funny. It hasn't been long since I decided to only think about how to survive, but so quickly these kinds of feelings have started to bloom within me. I don't think I'm normal, either. But that's still nothing compared to these barbarian bastards. Stop. The leader of the barbarian group who'd been running at the forefront stopped his steps, turned around and shouted proudly, I must have lost my way. The savages shouted back at that shocking confession. Farun's third son, Karak, has led us astray. He has no qualification to be our leader. You have to take responsibility. Fuck. You guys who were so happy to be followers have the guts to say that? Is this the barbarian society? So dirty. Stop. I get it. I admit that I am not worthy of the leader's position and will step aside. Karak, Fanun's second son or something, bowed his head deeply and returned to the group. Next, it was a female barbarian who was appointed as the leader of the next generation. Penalin's second daughter, Einar. Wise Einar, who will lead us on the right path. The female barbarian started leading the group with a happy face at those words of laudative anticipation. However, it didn't take long for her to follow the previous leader's footsteps. I must have lost my way. Surprisingly, the two of them even said the exact same words. It can't be. We must get to the labyrinth within the set time. Einar has no qualification to be our leader. Right. Confused, the savages began to seriously discuss who they would nominate as the third leader. I think the second son of Tetran would be good. No, I do not think so. Rather, are these cubs completely brainless? Have they still not realized that no matter who takes the lead, they aren't going to be able to reach their destination this way? Maybe even my turn will come. I quietly fell back and approached the second leader. A little less than 2 meters tall, the giant woman stood slightly away from the group with a discouraged expression on her face. Bjorn, son of Yundel? Did you come to blame me too? No way. To me, they all looked equally to blame. As I shook my head, the female barbarian tilted her head. Then why? I don't need consolation. No, I have come to show you how to find your way. Really? How? I pointed to a place with my hand. You just have to follow them. Can I just follow them? She looked like she couldn't believe it. I was patient and explained step by step, logically. A city at midnight. All the buildings along the road have the lights turned off. However, even at nighttime, there are quite a few people walking on the street. They are all dressed in armor, not everyday clothes. Where could they possibly be going? Surely. Now that I see it, I agree. I will give it a try. Thanks. The female barbarian returned to the group and shouted, I found a way, and the barbarians also stopped trying to choose the third leader and began to cheer. It's Einar after all. The wise female warrior. Anyway, the group started moving again. Were we going the right way? As time went on, more and more armed people were around us. At some point, I started to see a bunch of lights spreading out in all directions from afar. If you've come this far, at least you won't lose your way anymore. It's the labyrinth? I see the labyrinth. The dimension of sacred battles. I continued my interrupted thoughts again. One of my biggest concerns right now is whether entering the labyrinth is the correct decision. I feel it. The labyrinth is calling my soul. The savages lost in the crucible of excitement won't notice if I sneak out of the pack. Then I won't have to enter the labyrinth. I won't have to fight and bleed against monsters. However, even though I know what lies ahead better than anyone else, I still haven't been able to decide. Because I know that running away isn't the solution. Dungeon and Stone has a tax system. From the age of 20, all city dwellers are required to pay taxes, and failure to pay taxes is punishable by death. Hearing this alone makes me wonder what kind of manga is this, but if you look at the worldview, the reason becomes clear to some extent. I don't think it's something to worry about right now. Einar? Let's speed up. Whoa. Anyway, you have to make money. Of course, entering the labyrinth to fight monsters isn't necessarily the only method. Even if you work at a tavern, you won't have any problems making both ends meet. Unless you're a barbarian. Barbarians are the only ones given a weapon at the start of the game. For a very simple reason. Barbarian? I'm sorry. I just got a guy. Aren't you going to leave? There's nothing I can do for a barbarian. You're just going to break something again. Barbarians can't do normal work. Due to the game settings, there is no way to earn a living other than fighting monsters in the labyrinth. Well, I'm not sure how it will be in reality. You may find a job easier than you think. But it's one thing to believe that, another to break away from the group with just that bit of hope. 10 minutes left till it closes. Come on in. The labyrinth was opened once a month in game time. In other words, if I can't enter this time, I have to stay in this city for a month. But what if you can't find a job? What if no one hires you because you are a barbarian? Well, the future is bleak. Even if the food the chief provided lasts you for a week, you will have to live by picking up food waste afterwards. Maybe I'll starve to death before then. One thing is certain, even if I endure till that time, my body will be completely different from what it is now. I will be the first to go in. No, I come first. Hunger, cold, sleeping in unsanitary conditions. I know better than anyone how devastating these things are to the human body. So, if you are going in anyway, it is reasonable to enter now when you are in the best condition. The problem is that it can only shorten my lifespan. It was a time of crisis. Bjorn, son of Yundel. Someone grabbed my shoulder. When I checked, it was that barbarian woman. Obviously, her name was Einar, the third daughter of Penelin. I'm the second daughter. Anyway, so what do you need with me? All the other warriors have already entered the labyrinth. The only ones who haven't entered yet are you and me. Somehow the place had become quiet. When I checked, there were not many people left in the square, let alone other barbarians. Einar, as the second-generation leader, seemed to come to take care of me since I was still here. You must hurry. We're late, so we don't have much time. At that, I raised my head and looked straight ahead. The portal, which previously emitted intense light even from afar, had noticeably decreased in size. 5 minutes left until closing. Just then, the guide informed me of the remaining time once more. It's 5 minutes, so it's tighter than I thought. I'm going to have to make a decision soon. Go in first. I will follow you right away. I get it. Einar nodded and headed towards the portal, which deepened my troubles. So, what should I do now? As an extremely efficient person, I prefer to do things quickly, but it is not easy to make a decision this time around. Unlike games, my real life depends on it. Bjorn, son of Yundel. I involuntarily took a step backwards. Einar, who had been walking away, had suddenly turned around. Thank you for that. There's nothing to be thankful for. And there is one thing I want to ask you. Anything other than your mother's name, please. As I nodded, Einar asked with a 100% sincere voice. How can I be wise like you? I've never seen a barbarian as smart as you in my life. I want to be like you too. That's a really difficult question to answer. How can you become smart? To be honest, I wonder if it would be quicker to just be reborn. No, why am I thinking about this? Just give a rough answer and send her away. You always have to think and act. That's right. I just said something without giving it much thought, but Einar pondered my words with a serious expression. And she said something a little odd. Thank you for your advice. If I come back alive from the labyrinth, I will repay you. If you come back alive? It sounds too strange coming out of a barbarian's mouth. So, I had to put an unnecessary question in my mouth. Are you afraid of dying? Isn't it obvious? Of course, I'm afraid to die. Perhaps other warriors do as well. I wouldn't say it out loud, though. Is that so? To be honest, it doesn't make sense to me if you say that. The barbarians in the game were unaware of fear. Actually, it didn't look much different now either. While I was speechless, Einar added a further explanation. We were born warriors. If you don't fight, you die. Her tone was clumsy and rigid, but somehow, I could fully understand what she was trying to say. Right. Like me, they just didn't have a choice. Because they were born as barbarians. If you don't catch and kill the monsters in the labyrinth, you won't be able to survive in this city. That is why they learned how to overcome their fears and move forward from an early age. Yes, it was just that. What made them look like savage barbarians. See you alive. Bjorn, son of Yundel. Einar soon entered the portal. 1 minute left until closing. Now there's nothing holding me back. Only my choices left. Like the phrase while entering the final boss room that comes to mind, there are two options. Yes/no. That thought clears up my mind, which had somehow become jumbled and complicated. When I was playing games, I always played with an emphasis on efficiency for the sake of a goal. Before acting, I considered the possibility first, and I always moved with the next step in mind. Even if there is an immediate benefit, if the final result is a net loss, say no. Otherwise, choose yes. So, there was never any choice to speak of. The gate will be closed soon. Back off. I ran forward. Deep down, fear was boiling over, same as when the chieftain had called my name. Needless to say, I have never even experienced a common fist fight, having been sickly for most of my life. And on top of that, what if the opponent is a monster? I'm so terrified it's as if my body is slowly turning to stone. It's dangerous. However, that doesn't mean I have no chance at all. Right now, I have the body of a barbarian, strong enough to ignore common sense. I have my knowledge, gained from nurturing characters thousands of times. Above all else, I have a grand goal, to survive. So, I have no choice but to do this. Even though I know better than anyone the horror and grotesqueness hiding behind this choice. Still, this is the most reasonable choice. As far as Dungeon and Stone is concerned, I am an expert. What kind of monsters come from where, what habits they have, and what their weaknesses are, I know by heart. Based on this, I made my final decision. If you combine a barbarian's physique and my knowledge, it's enough to survive in this labyrinth. At least, at the time, I genuinely believed so. As soon as I entered the labyrinth, my vision went dark. Not some kind of a metaphor or analogy, literally, I couldn't see anything. It was so bad I probably wouldn't even have noticed if someone covered my eyes with a blindfold. Yes, there wouldn't have been much of a difference. Fuck. I felt like I'd been ambushed out of nowhere. All the barbarians had been just carrying the one weapon, so I didn't even have any doubts about this from the start. There should have been no need for torches on the first floor, because the crystals on the wall act as a light source. Of course, there is also a dark zone on the first floor, but except for the outermost area that leads to the second floor. Oh, did I fall there now? I quickly hypothesized. When entering the labyrinth, the starting position is set at random. Of course, just because it's random doesn't mean you'd be thrown into a place like this. Even if you happen to start at the outskirts, there would still always be a shining crystal nearby. However, this is not the world of the game seen through the monitor. What if all of those things were a kind of convenience the game designers gave the player? In reality, what if there is a case of an unlucky bastard caught in the dark zone as his starting point? If so, can my current situation be explained? No, it must be that. If the entire first floor was like this, I wouldn't have the confidence to survive a single day. Still, I calmed down a bit after organizing my thoughts. Fortunately, my eyes had adapted to the darkness, so my vision was much better than before. Right, but I could still only the vague outlines of objects. Well, the situation was not dire enough to contemplate committing suicide by biting off your tongue. Let's go ahead and check things out first. I'm finally alone. Status window, equipment window, character information, status, inventory. Check journal, damn. Doesn't work. Well, I didn't expect it to, anyway. Let's go. One hand holding the shield and the other touching the wall, I moved forward. With a speed was only a little bit faster than crawling. Well, isn't that obvious? Even if it was slower than crawling, I simply couldn't increase my speed any further. It's dangerous. Suddenly, a sharp pain erupted in my ankle. It was the first time in my life that I felt this kind of pain, making my nerves go crazy. But in the meantime, I figured out the situation. What the hell was wrong? Even without a battle log, the answer became obvious very quickly. Character stepped on a goblin trap. Fuck, I stepped on a trap. What was the flaw in my strategy? You don't even have to think about it. The shield gave me psychological stability, but in return, it obscured much of my field of view. If I had buckled my shield to my belt and focused on observing the terrain, I might have found the trap. What's the use of a shield if you can't see anything anyway? I had to focus on practicality, rather than mental stability. Shit. Fuck it. My hair was about turn white from the pain. I wanted so very much to scream, right now, but I persevered desperately. I didn't know if screaming might make me feel better, but I knew for sure that it would make the situation worse. Thump, thump, thump. My heart was pounding like crazy. Huke. I pressed my lips together and forced myself to breathe slowly. What I needed to remember now was not how badly hurt I was right now. There is only one type of monster on the first floor that uses traps. Goblin. And there is definitely one lurking nearby. I reflexively raised the shield to cover my head, then held my breath, focusing on my hearing. There was no sound. It was so quiet as if time itself had stopped. Isn't there? I don't know. Maybe they just left their position for a while, or something like that. Even goblins have to shit sometime. Fuck, I can't think that way. I crumpled up that creeping thread of hope like a ball and threw it out of my head. There were two reasons. First, there is a difference between thinking positive and being an optimistic idiot. Second, what I need right now is a negative mindset. If you can't be sure, just assumed the worst. The goblin heard my scream. It's hiding in the dark, waiting quietly for me to lose my strength. That's why I didn't hear any sound. Because, in the game, if there is a trap, there must be a goblin around. Whew, I slowly exhaled the breath I had been holding. Anyway, it was all very quiet, so if you didn't relax, you'd notice somebody approaching. First, let's do what I have to do. Hew up. Crouch down, pull open the trap with both hands and pull your feet out. Then, after tearing off the hem of the trousers, take off your shoes and apply strong pressure to the wounded area. I decided to throw away the dirty shoes. In fact, it was tough to even call them shoes, because what I had been wearing were closer to sandals. Damn barbarian bastards. If I'd started off with even just some simple leather boots on, they wouldn't have needed to be thrown away after a single half-assed trap like this. What the fuck am I thinking? I find myself thinking unreasonable thoughts, and my heart goes cold. Let's not mourn the past anymore. No matter how much you curse, the situation you're facing will not change. In the end, it was my fault for not checking the floor properly. So stop whining, and check your body first. This is really bad. I can't feel any sensation in my right foot anymore. There is a dull heat, but even that is getting faint. I know you're hiding, so come out. I whispered quietly. Still, beyond the darkness, there was no sign of life. So, I slowly moved forward. Step. Step. One leg was sore, but the pain was not as great as I would expect. Probably because the trap had been soaked in some paralytic poison. I don't know if I should call this a good thing. Come out, you bastard. I didn't hesitate to provoke them, and I kept moving forward. Because time isn't on my side. If you have to fight, the sooner you get to it, the better. Injuries are one thing, but the possibility that he is waiting for reinforcement from his comrades cannot be ignored. Aren't you coming? Of course, these may all just be my delusions, and there may be no goblins here in reality. Then I'd be a fool who stepped on a trap by himself and followed that up with all kinds of stand-up shows. But so what? Even so, I want to survive. Then how about you just stay there? I will go. Speed up. It's a bit faster than crawling, but right now it feels like running a marathon at a sprint. One step, then another. As I was walking, my right foot started to throb. SSSSPP, two possibilities. Either the effect of the paralyzing poison has expired, or the pain has become severe enough that the poison is no longer enough to suppress it. Come to think of it, neither one is bad for me. If the effect is over, that's fine. If you can feel the pain, that's because the nerves are undamaged. No, why am I being so positive about this? Well, I don't really want to think about it. I don't have the brain power to spare. Your mother is a fucking goblin. Words come out without any brain-to-mouth filter. Is it because I've shed so much blood? My brain feels as if it'd been dried and pickled in alcohol. Your father is also a fucking goblin. Of course, I kept spitting out words as soon as they came to mind, but my feet did not stop. So you are one too, you fucking goblin. Then, there was a sound for the first time. It was obviously a small sound, but it was very loud to my ears, which had been listening with concentration. Chuck, finally, he showed his presence for the first time. What? Couldn't stand your parents being cursed. Of course, I knew that wasn't the case. It wasn't even a curse in the first place. The sound came from behind. It would be more accurate to say that he was forced to make his move since I was getting farther and farther away. I accelerated further. The sound of his footsteps also accelerated behind me. Chuck, 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 Chuck. His footsteps sounded unusual. Every step he took, there was the sound of something sticky pressing and sticking to a smooth surface. Even though I knew goblins were less than 1 m tall as per the setting, I felt the pressure as if a huge monster was chasing me. To shake off my fear, I kept talking to him. I am a barbarian, in the end. If you can only get him into close combat range, there's no way you will lose to a goblin. Don't just follow me, come have a go. You fucker. For that reason, I continued to provoke him, but he just kept following me while maintaining a certain distance. He didn't seem interested in hiding himself anymore. Grook, grook. It sounded close to a bestial howl, but I could feel it somehow. Gurururark? Grook. He was giggling, now. He was genuinely delighted to see his prey bleeding out and slowly dying. He was hoping I'd hear the sound and be terrified. Smart bastard. Okay, Change of plans. I stopped walking. Then I stumbled and fell to the floor. Puck. My forehead, which had hit a rock, felt like it was going to split open, but I made no sound. From now on, it's a battle of patience. If you think I'm down for the count and approach me first, I win. If I'm really down and out before that happens, I lose. Gruck. I decided to believe in the toughness of this body that had managed to walk about 300 m with one foot hurt and insensate. His footsteps sounded closer and closer, slow enough to make you yawn. Despite the fact that his prey had fallen down as he expected, he was still suspicious. Fucking crazy, why is this goblin so cautious? Swear words came to mind out of nowhere. Goblins were the weakest mobs in the game. They used poison and installed traps, but apart from that, their combat power was poor. But what about the goblin you actually encountered in reality? Chuck, he wasn't an opponent who could be taken lightly by any metric. I realized why the village NPCs talked about the goblin's cleverness so much. They were several times more intelligent than those barbarian cubs. Chuck, the goblin stopped at a distance somewhere between 5 m and 10 m. Why? I was curious. A dull shock transmitted from the shoulder. Tuck. Digurer. What? Now this scumbag was pelting me with stones. You aren't gonna throw them until I'm just a bloody mess, right? Gurururark? Grook. Unlike what I feared, the goblin instead spat out a howl of joy. When I didn't react to the stone at all, he thought I was dead. Chuck, 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 Chuck. He came over to me quickly. I could feel his excitement from the beats of his footsteps, which were almost skipping. I calmed my own excitement and counted our distance through the sound. And when I decided that he had come near enough, fuck you, I jumped up and stretched out my hands towards him. I judged that reaching out with my hands would be faster and have a longer effective range compared to picking up the shield and hitting him with it. However, I soon had a gut feeling that the plan had gone awry. Again, there were two reasons. First of all, I was still about a step away from him. And second, his movements were much more agile than expected. Gruck. The guy leaned back from the waist and stepped backwards. I couldn't see him, but it felt like that. I instinctively realized that I had missed my chance. Damn it, what now? I shook my head and prepared for the next plan. But at that moment, my body moved by instinct. It was truly a strange feeling. It was still dark before my eyes, but I intuitively knew where the goblin was running. By the time I consciously realized that, my hand was already on track and moving towards him. Gruck. I felt him being caught by my fingertips. Wrist, ankle, neck, it didn't matter. Ah! I screamed and slammed him to the floor. Quajik? There was the sound of something breaking. But I couldn't feel relieved, so I immediately climbed on top of him. Gruck. Now things had changed. Now I'm up, and you're down. You piece of shit. I slugged him in the face like a madman. There were times when I missed and hit the floor in my excitement, but this barbarian body was much stronger than I had imagined. Instead of hurting my fists, the stone floor cracked and broke. Soon, his movements ceased, and dust scattered. Dust that shined unusually. I stopped my fists. At some point, the goblin corpse lying on the floor had split into small pieces and scattered. Really, this is nonsense. Fuck, this same thing again. Please, I wish I could choose one or the other. Is it a game, or is it just a similar reality? I keep getting confused about which beat to go with. You have defeated a goblin. EXP +1. Soon after, the goblin's body disappeared without a trace. Feeling frustrated for some unknown reason, I picked up a small stone that had fallen on the spot. You have acquired a grade 9 mana stone. It wasn't strong, but there was a faint light shining from it. It was a magic stone that was the currency in Dungeon and Stone. How much was this worth? A memory soon came to mind. A piece of bread. The average value of the mana stones spat out by goblins in the game. Some laughter leaked out. Kahahahaha, is this the only thing I get from that fucking bastard? All those complicated emotions became clearer as I calmed down. Close to that feeling where you end up laughing after crying a lot. Kahahaha. There's a labyrinth, and there are monsters. A dead monster will disappear, leaving a drop item. And in that city out there, all the various races live together. Obviously, this is that kind of a world. But there will be no more confusion. It takes 10 to 15 hours to create one video, but subscribing and liking take less than 10 to 15 seconds. Please subscribe to our channel if you're not already. It greatly helps in creating new videos.